going to go from just using benchmarks to actually using percents and ratio and rate reasoning to solve percent problems. Homework tonight, 2 math in workspaces, determining the part given a percent and whole, and determining whole given a percent and a part. So those are numbers 13 of 14 out of section 2. Okay, go ahead and open up in your modules to page 281 if you're not there yet. So we've got 3 problems for you to solve. All you're doing is determining the unknown quantity in each proportion. So tell me what the question mark is for all 3 of those. You guys about 2 minutes. Go ahead and go. So there are several ways to do these, but I'm going to go with what we've been training you on. Can I go easily from 8 to 12? No, but I can simplify this, make this 3/4. Now I can go 4 to 12, multiply by 3, do 3 times 3, and I get 9. Doesn't matter which side my fraction is on that I can simplify.
Was that a question?
Yes, that was a question. Doesn't matter which side my fraction is on that I can simplify. No. Whichever side has both numbers, I can simplify. So 15 and 40, I can divide both those by 5 to give me 3/8, because 40 doesn't go easy to 16, does it? But does 8 go easy to 16? Multiply them by 2, and I get 6. Our last one, 6 and 15. Will 15 go easily to 10? No, but I can simplify. Divide those by 3 gives me 2/5. Now I can just multiply by 2, and I get 4. Yes, sir.
I took a different approach to it.
Okay.
Number 1 and 2, I saw that you're taking half of 8 and adding it to that, making it 12, so it's half of 6, and added to it, getting 9.
Oh, really? You took half of it, but it was a different way?
So I took half of it. I took 4, which is half of 8. That gets you to 12. Then I took half of 6, it's still 6. But I added it to that to get 9.
You took half of each of them. Kind of like dividing by 2.
So what'd you do for number 2?
I did what you did. Somebody call you up, find out like that.
Okay. So the bottom line is, guys, there's lots of different ways to do this. This is just one method. Yes, Legend?
So number 8, I did not do it like that. So I took 6 divided by 15.
Okay.
6 is 40%, 40% of 10 is 5.
That would work as well. Like I said, this is just one way to do these. Okay, let's turn the page. When you study problems in terms of ratios, like percents, it is important to think about the whole as well as the parts. The whole is not always 100 or 1. And if the whole changes, this changes the percent. So we've got this picture with 6 triangles. Everybody see that picture? We got 2 questions for you. If the picture shown is 100% of the triangles, draw 50%. So there's your task. If the picture shown is 30% of the triangles, draw 100%. So there's your task. So basically, here, let me just explain this in English instead of in math. This is saying, if this is all of the triangles that were drawn, draw 50% of it. This one is saying, they drew a whole bunch of triangles. This represents 30% of the total that were drawn. Draw how many there were for 100%. Does that make more sense?
Yeah. No.
Just reread it. See if it makes sense.
Reread it, but realize this one is asking you to draw less. This one's asking you to draw more is really the way to think about it. Yes, Jaden?
Does it mean to draw 100 triangles?
Nope. 100%. So yeah, remember, percent is based on how many there are.
There's 6.
Okay? So we'll give you guys about 4 minutes to work on this one as a table.
Guys, thank you. All right, let's look at this. If those 6 triangles is 100% of the triangles, how do I find 50%?
Cut those 6 triangles in half.
Yes, I divide them in half. So I divide 100 by 2 to get to 50%. So what is 6 divided by 2? 3. So you should have 3 triangles. Make sense? All right, B. If the picture shown is 30% of the triangles, draw 100% of the triangles. So can I do something to 30 to get to 100? Evenly. Alex? Does that get me to 100? Okay.
Multiply it by 3 and then take 10%.
So I need to find 10%. That's the key part. I need to know what 10% of the triangles are. Yes? So how would I go from 30 to 10%? Divide by 3. That gets me 10%. So if I divide my triangles by 3, how many triangles does that leave me? So 10% is 2 triangles. Yes? So now can I do something to 10% to get to 100%? Multiply it by 10. So what is 2 times 10? That gets me 100%, and that gets me 20. So you should have drawn 20 triangles. Are there any questions about how we did that? Okay, I want you to work on 2A, B, and C. If this rectangle represents 25% of the whole figure, draw a rectangle that represents 50% of the whole figure, one that represents 75% of the whole figure, and one that represents 100% of the whole figure. And then we will come back and talk about it. You have about 4 minutes. Go for it. Okay, so if this rectangle represents 25% of a figure, draw a rectangle that represents 50% of the figure. So what are we going to do to get from 25% to 50%?
We're going to draw 2 rectangles.
Draw 2 of them. Because if one is 25%, 2 of them would equal 50%. Yes?
Yes.
B says, draw a rectangle that represents 75% of the whole figure. So what are we going to do to get 75%? 3 of them this time. And guys, it specifically says rectangle. So if you drew it this way, that's not a rectangle. That does not count. Make sense?
Yes.
And if that is 25%, draw one that represents 100% of the whole figure. So what am I going to have for this one? Kind of. How many? 4. And there are 2 ways you can draw this one. That way. Or this way, because a square is a rectangle. Make sense? Any questions about these? All right, let's look at the next page. These are very similar to the ones we have just done, so I want you to do numbers 3 and 4, and then we will come back and discuss in about 6 minutes. Go for it.
Okay, guys. If this is 75% of the whole figure, and now I want to draw 25% of the figure, how many of them am I going to draw? 1. So it doesn't matter which of them you draw. Okay? If I now want to get to 100%, now what do I do? Yes. I have to draw 4 of them now. So given how they did it, would be something like that. Okay? Now, this one shows 200% of the whole. So if I want 100%, what am I going to do? Yes? Draw what? 2 of them. So I heard several complaining the hexagons are difficult to draw. They're really not that bad, guys. So we gave you an example right there to go off of as well. Does it matter which 2 I draw? No. Now, here's where it gets a little trickier. How do I draw that 25% of that now?
Take one of them and split it in half.
Good. Take one of them and split it in half. It's a trapezoid. Oh. Okay, let's go ahead and turn the page.
We need to skip this one.
Skip this one. Okay, we're going to skip page 284
And 5.
and 5 and go to 286. Okay. I'll just be straight up with you guys, and I think Ms. McShan would agree with me. I'm not a huge fan of the way they're presenting this, because they're basically showing you every way to do percents at once, rather than break them into pieces. So, what we've got here, we have all the methods are correct, and everyone got the correct answer, but
You're doing great.
this one will move. There we go. What if Mr. Gooding gave us a problem of 32% of 732? In other words, when you make the numbers harder, it kind of limits the ways that you can do it. So you can refer back to the ones we just skipped, because each of these had a way that they did it, and now they're trying to use their way with the harder method, with the harder numbers. So you'll see some of these guys are struggling a little bit. What we want you to do is look through which method do you prefer with this particular percent, and then determine the percent of each of these quantities. Okay? So go ahead and look through them. And again, you may want to refer back to the pages we just skipped because it gives easier examples. But figure out which of these percent methods you feel works best for you. And then go ahead and solve the 6 problems at the bottom. So we'll give you guys about 8 minutes to look at all of this and try to get those solved. Okay, we're going quickly, mostly because we're going to try to hand out your test after this one, but did you guys have a preference on anybody's method? What do you think, Autumn? Hank's? Okay. I'll be honest, for these types of problems, Hank is probably my favorite of all of these. Okay? That's what's not going to get there. There's not an easy fraction. I will say, I actually don't mind the Pamela method, because the 10s, 5s, 1s, those the benchmarks are really quite easy to use. Yes, Legend. You did what? Okay, but Simon basically said, I can't do this. So that's really not a good method. It is good for the ones that work easy, like for number 3, part C, I'll do Simon's method, because that one is pretty easy. But if it doesn't, an easy one here, 7%, I would probably just use Hank's method, turn that into a decimal, 700ths. When you have 2 decimal places, gives me a 0 and 56, put 2 decimals in there, it's 5 6/10. Not too difficult, right? Okay, 15% to 55. This one, I would probably just go ahead and do the same one as Hank's method. Although, yeah, it's probably the easiest way to go. So if I did 1500ths times 55, I've got 2 decimals. Gives me 25, 75, 75, put them together, 5, 12, 8. 2 decimal places, 8 and 2500ths. Part C, this is where I would go with Legend on Simon's method. Now I just put it over 100 because it's out of 300. I know I can do that easy, right? That's just times 3 gives me 24. Okay? 12.5%. How many of you guys remember that table I told you would make your life a lot easier if you memorized it in last lesson? 12 5/10% was given as a fraction. Does anybody remember what fraction that was? Jaden?
12 and 1/2.
No. It is 12.5%, but what fraction is that? If I turn that to a fraction, it's 1/8. That's why I said you should memorize those. If you knew that, and you saw you had 64, now this math becomes really easy. That's just 8. Okay? 37% of 120. Couple different ways you can do this one. I'm probably going to use the benchmark on this one, because I can do 10% really easy, right? That's just 12. So I have 3 10s. So that's 3 times 12 is 36. I have 1 5%. So half of 12 is 6. And then I have 2 1%. 1% is 1 and 2 tenths, or 2 of them is 2 and 4 tenths. And I just add those up. Gives me 4 tenths, 6, 12, 14, 44 and 4 tenths. And then the last one, 150%. This one I would probably do differently than most of you. I know 100% of 27 is 27. 50% is half of that, or 13 and 5 tenths. Then I just put those together, gives me 5 tenths, 10, 40. 40 and 5 tenths. So I did 1/100 is 27, and 150 is 13 and 5 tenths. And then I put them together. Questions on any of these? Okay, your homework's pretty simple. It's just 2 Mathia workspaces. We're getting into determining the parts and wholes using these percents. And we're go ahead. We're going to give you your test back. If you need to do corrections, make sure you grab the forms. If you messed up the graph on the test, guys, we have extra graph papers you can use to do your test corrections on. Autumn, did you get all that? Are you sure? So what's the extra piece you have on corrections this time? Okay. Make sure you guys